Hi everyone, welcome to this video. Today we'll be using Xlate to synchronize issues between a Jira and a GitHub instance. Now, for the purposes of this video, we'll be using Jira Cloud as an example, but for all intents and purposes, it could be any version or flavor of Jira, and the use case would remain the same. Now, the way we've set up this use case is that on the Jira side, we'll create an epic, which would have a user-defined custom field called GitHub repository. The idea being that the Jira agent chooses the repo that he wants to land the issue into. So once the epic is created and the repo is chosen, this epic would be reflected on the GitHub side as an issue. Now that part is straightforward enough. Then you proceed with creating child issues for the epic, right? So you create some stories, tasks, bugs within the epic, and these will all be picked up and sent over to the GitHub side. Again, that part remains straightforward enough. Now, the challenge in this is to somehow create a hierarchy within the GitHub issues, because GitHub doesn't really have the notion of issue links and stuff. So you need to somehow manually create that hierarchy. And of course, at the end of it, you maintain the bi-directional sync between all the tickets at an issue level. Right, so to get started with, let's create an epic within Jira. Now you can use any sort of logic to automate the process of sending the tickets over to the other side, to the GitHub side. Now, what I've done in this example is I've chosen the GitHub repository field. So as soon as the agent makes a selection on this field, this acts as a trigger to Xlate, which then picks this issue up and creates it within the target repo, obviously chosen out here. Now, to monitor this, you can either check the GitHub side or you have this handy little Xlate panel which tells you what's going on. So it's created issue number 26 on the GitHub side, which we can just directly access as long as you have access to the GitHub side. And yeah, the rocket to Mars with a brief description came over and got created in the correct repo. Right, so now let's start creating some child issues. So let's create a task. And just like before, let's go into the task and choose a target repo. In this example, this would act as my trigger to send the ticket over to the GitHub side. Right, while we're at it, let's create another one. And lastly, let's just create a story for good measure. And again, as long as the target repo is chosen, Xlate will automatically pick these up and send them to the audience. Right, let's just give it a few seconds to sync up. Right, so my status is synced. Hopefully the tickets should be synced. So let's go into the engine issues and see where that's synced to. That's synced to 28. Let's just open it. So this will have like a kind of a backlink to your main epic, the Rocket to Mars. And like if I click on it, this should have the links to all the child issues added automatically. And of course, all this is in sync. So let's make a comment on the main epic, like the corresponding epic on the Jira side. And let's just make a comment on the body parts. Right. So these comments would automatically sync back, obviously. And let's just say we decide to close the documentation task. So there are quite a few transactions which we've made now. Let's just go back. Right. So the main epic, the Rocket to Mars, had a comment added. The body parts had a comment added. And the documentation task got closed. Right. Let's now come back to Jira and see how all this reflects. Right, so my documentation task, as I can immediately see, is marked as done automatically. My comment came over. The rocket one came over to the rocket ticket, and the body parts one should obviously come over to the body parts one. And yeah, this goes both ways. So once this reflects back, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to close all 3 tasks on the GitHub side. So let's say we'll close the engine issues now. And let's now just go and close the body parts as well. So the comment came over to the body parts, and I think let's close this. And now let's return to Jira. So all 3 should be marked as closed. So the engine one came over, and we're still waiting for the transaction to come over for the body parts. Right, so that should be it. So hopefully this has given you some ideas about how you can somehow maintain hierarchy on the GitHub side, which makes it quite difficult. So I've used the links out here using the Markdown syntax. I'll include the entire code snippets and how we do this on the post itself. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.